Hello, welcome to the third episode of the Red Sauce Podcast with Papa Joe. As you might have guessed by now, I'm Papa Joe, Il Capovinaio at Piazza Tellerico and Papa Joe's Wine Cellar. I'm here with my daughter Katie,
Hi.
who serves as our Italian culture expert and historian. My daughter Beth, the cook and general entertainer, and huge pit fan. And today we have a very special guest. We have Justin Abai, who's from Saint Ravioli, who just opened up a ravioli shop in Bloomfield. He's tried to bring back Little Italy, that's basically been pretty much gone, but maybe he'll start the renaissance of Little Italy in Bloomfield. Hopefully he will.
I think we can do this together because we're right on the border.
Next generation. You guys are Bloomfield as far as I'm concerned.
I think so.
Yeah, walkable, you know?
So anyway, our subject today is macaroni, mostly ravioli, because Justin makes ravioli. If you haven't figured that out by now, you probably should turn it off because you're not going to understand anything.
You're not fucking paying attention.
That's right. Okay, so let's go.
Justin, you're allowed to say whatever fucking words you want.
We just lost our PG rating, didn't we?
Yes, we lost it long
We
ago.
lost it in the first episode.
So as always, Katie starts,
I have the notes. I'm the one that guides this in somewhat of an organized fashion and when we can.
and I'm the one that tries to disorganize it.
And I'm the fuck up on the end that just chimes in when it's time.
All right, Beth, do you wanna talk a little bit about how we got to know Justin and his dad and?
I would love to.
All right.
So Justin and all of us have been friends for about 5 years now, I would say.
Yeah.
Probably 4 or 5 years.
You know what?
Well, I guess it'll be 4 because
Yeah.
it was not a whole year into us owning the restaurant.
It was the first summer. Right?
Yeah. So his dad worked for Iron City Beer, which is right around the corner. And his coworker Chad Primrose brought him in for lunch, brought his dad in. And he just said, hey, these girls run this restaurant down the street, some of the best food in the city. We want you to come and taste it because you're an old Dago, just like their dad.
Well, Chad knew us because of your friend Rob Lombardo.
Yep.
His daughter danced with Rob's daughter.
Yeah. So he sent Chad in, and then Chad said, I have to bring my friend Joe in. He loves this kind of food and this kind of place. And then before you know it, Joe was bringing Justin in for lunch when you worked for, was it New York Life Insurance?
Yeah, I was with New York Life. So the life of a insurance salesman, especially life insurance, is a lot of downtime and occasionally meetings at places like this. And you know what my dad told me was, it feels like you're at Mama and Grandma's, and that's exactly what it was. When I came in, there's we're drinking wine out of non-wine glasses as properly should.
The
Cheers.
Italian wine glass.
Cheers.
Salute.
10,000.
Salute.
100 years.
Connie.
But I think that was it. The family atmosphere really drew me in, and it was just a fun place. I think the first time I was here, Anna made me a friendship bracelet out of nowhere, and I'm just like, what other restaurant can you go get a good pizza, a glass of wine, some charcuterie, and a friendship bracelet?
Yep.
Sounds about
Made
right.
by the same person that made your pizza.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, Justin then became a regular because you've lived in Bloomfield for how long now?
Since 2014. So I was a Southside resident for about 7 years after college and really wanted to stay there. Bloomfield to me was a place I went for Little Italy days. I had no idea that I was gonna, maybe 10 years later have a house and a business there. But the neighborhood and really, this part of Penn Avenue and Liberty, it's all really grown on me, and it's become home. And also, originally I'm from Catania, Pennsylvania, so getting on 28's easier. I mean, I love this part of town, and as I said before, I can walk to Piazza Tellerico. I can, it's just a nice place to live.
Yeah.
Well, and the funny thing is, we have a similar job at Bloomfield. When Beth and I were growing up, Dad used to take us into like Lombardozzi's and Mariani's and all those places, and
D'Amico's.
D'Amico's. And when we were in college, Beth and I, we would have loved to have lived in Oakland, but God, those prices are ridiculous for college students. So we're like, let's go to Bloomfield.
Yeah.
And it was great, being able to walk to what was left of the restaurants at the time. This was 10 years ago. We left, I think, the year you moved in.
Yeah, and that's one thing. I mean, Little Italy, it's always been Little Italy, but I kind of came into the neighborhood when a lot of stuff was leaving. You know, we had Dell's was on its way out, Pleasure Bars that was still there, Lumber Dozie's, you know, unfortunately hasn't been open for a long time. And
Did they permanently close?
so it's funny, Kirsten actually said to me today, she saw that there was a sign on the window for sale. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, because I don't know what else could be there other than Italian restaurant.
I
It's
know.
like all mirrors and grass inside, like that has to be an Italian restaurant.
Right.
So, you know, hopefully something else goes in, and if Saint Ravioli can be part of that, it's not a concept where, you know, that old Italian restaurant where you can bring your family on a Saturday night. You know, I do an at-home frozen product, but, you know, I want to be in everybody's freezer in Bloomfield. You know, I want to be, you know, a quick, good meal for people, and you know, it's exciting to see what's going to happen in the neighborhood, because I think everything's coming up the hill from Lawrenceville. You know, so
I definitely think there's going to be a resurgence of Bloomfield, much like Lawrenceville is at.
Yeah.
And I think you're definitely a part of the beginning of that.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so.
All right. So, well, you have a very similar background to Beth and I. You were a good blend of German and Italian.
Yeah.
Who,
So
who taught you how to cook?
as far, you know, food was always around in my family. You know, if we want to start all the way back, my Italian and Croatian side. So the Italian side, we were so far north. You know, we're like basically on the Austrian border. So there were a lot of like German influence, and a lot of sauerkraut, and you know, just kind of Pennsylvania things. Obviously,
Bratwurst.
in our cuisine. But really, my Croatian grandmother cooking primarily northern Italian food, which wasn't too different from the part of Croatia that her, like, they all kind of eat the same things. And that really, I remember my grandma Kai's kitchen vividly. My dad always has been big into cooking. My mother has always been an excellent baker. My dad also is big into harvesting wild game and then like using that protein. So that's really gotten me into just trying different things, especially with ravioli. But and then outside of my family, you know, getting to know, you know, ladies like yourself, my friend Pete down at Ironborn, all the Mercurios over at Mercurios, you know, just friends within the industry that I picked up stuff from, you know, that we've all just kind of shared. I think it's a great time to be a cook and a chef with the internet, and just the willingness of people to share information.
Oh yeah.
So that's really where I probably picked up the most.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. All right, let's start with the birth of Saint Ravioli. You started this during the beginning of the pandemic, and it had a little bit of a different function for that. You started it out to feed food service workers who were out of work at the time.
Yep, absolutely. And so it started, I was, you know, as Beth was saying, I was working with New York Life, and the pandemic really, I think, shocked a lot of people when that first order from the governor that, you know, restaurants had to shut down. I'm sure you guys were just, you know, it was kind of shocking because we hadn't had a moment where it's like, you can't be in business, you can't work for the better good of everybody. And I saw a lot of friends worried about where their next paycheck was going to be, or, you know, they count on those tips on a weekly basis.
Where their next meal's going to be too.
Yeah.
I mean, we thought it was going to be a week or two
Yeah.
at first.
Oh yeah. It was just well, you know,
Yeah.
reduce the curve, and it was going to be a couple weeks, and it ended up being potentially for a lot of people, they just got out of the industry totally. But the only thing I knew I could do, I knew I was going to have a lot more time on my hands because I wasn't able to go into the office. So I started, you know, saying, oh, in my spare time during the pandemic, during this lockdown, I'll make some ravioli, and if people want to come over and grab it off me, I'll post about it on Instagram. They can come to my house and get it. And if they can donate, great. If not, it's on the house. And people were very generous. People started donating really more than they should have for the cost of my ingredients. And it was very nice. And it was allowing me to keep going for a few more months. And then, you know, summer got busy. I think pandemic fatigue kind of set in for everybody in general. But I always knew I wanted to come back to it. So after doing it through the spring and early summer, I took a little hiatus to kind of work on the concept, build a logo, and you know, then launched the Saint Ravioli brand in the fall of 2020 around Thanksgiving. but I still wanted to have that like altruistic nature, and we were actually able to raise money for Hearts of the Homeless, a women's shelter, $1 every dozen that I sold to people for it. And that's really something I want to keep throughout Saint Ravioli, but that's really the origin. It was, I've taken the one thing I'm pretty good at and just continuing to try and get better at it. So.
Yeah, and it's evolved ginormously. Like you've come a long way in just a very short time.
Yeah, there's definitely moments where I'm in the shop now, because I do have a shop on Liberty Avenue, actually right beside Lot 17, in between Time Machine and Lot 17. And you have moments where you're just like, holy cow, like, I developed this logo on an app on my phone, and now it's all over my windows and awning. And it's just like, if I would have told myself, even a year and a half into it, that this is where I'd be, I wouldn't have believed myself. So there's definitely moments you got to stop and be grateful, but and you really need that, because there's some hard days, and especially
we're aware, yeah.
Yeah, running a business is it's a roller coaster ride, but I don't think at this point, I don't know if I could do anything else. Like this is just what I've never been happier, but also more freaked out all the time.
That's a good way to put it, because
Yeah.
I feel absolutely the same way. We've been here. It's going to be 5 years in December that we've been here.
That's a huge milestone.
Yeah, and I am constantly like, I'm always happy about the place, but I'm very frustrated at certain things, and freaked out and just stressed out.
Sure.
Beth was saying she's never felt stress in her life until we opened this place.
Yep, but you're right. Like it's so much fun, but you still freak out on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And you wonder, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah, it's like, is this idea going to work, or are people going to respond well to this? And but at the same time, you just got to do the vision, and I think that's what's been so beneficial for you guys. Like, you are who you are, and this is like, you are focused on your Southern Italian food from your heritage, from your grandmother's kitchen.
Yeah.
And that's the coolest thing, and that's what I think kind of permeates into your clientele. They come here for that. So congratulations on 5 years, seriously, because
Thank you.
5 years in restaurant, it's like dog years.
Hey, we still got to make it 3 more months.
Yeah.
Gotcha. It's like a whole more year.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, I'm the finance guy, and I can tell you, I'm pretty sure we'll make it 3 more months.
Sounds
I
good.
hope so. Well, so here's what I got to say. It takes balls to do this in general, but during a pandemic, like,
Yeah, no better time than now, I guess. But at the same time, would it be better if things didn't cost so much and supply chains were more consistent? Yeah. It's been, it's like a game. Every time you go to Restaurant Depot, every time you go
It really
to,
is.
PenMac, like what's down there. So you learn to just roll with the punches. Give yourself outs if things don't work out exactly how planned. But with my schedule, I kind of try and plan ahead. But and that gives me, at least it's like, okay, I've put a post up that says I'm going to have this drop on this date. Like, I got to find these ingredients no matter where they're at, and it gives you kind of that goal. It's funny. It's Saint Ravioli is almost like I'm creating little projects to work on. I finish the project and I go to the next one, which I kind of like. It keeps me interested, but it's definitely different than like what I was used to growing up in like the restaurant industry and everything,
Well, and the stuff you do is very different too. I mean, where have you gotten some of your inspiration? I mean, that's amazing. You make wedding soup ravioli. You make
Sure.
everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. So I started, learning that I was pretty good at making ravioli, and then I started trying to become better at it. Got a better dough recipe.
So obviously the process has evolved as you've gone, which it does everywhere.
For sure. And a lot of it is, just talking to other chefs, finding out, what is going to make this a better dough, what's going to make this filling stand up better in the ravioli. But yeah, the ideas for it really come from, I don't know, just being around the industry, and also like food truck culture and different fusion and things like that. I always tell people I kind of think of my ravioli as like a sandwich, and like if it could be a sandwich, it could probably be a ravioli. And then the wedding soup, that, I mean, full credit, that came to me when I was watching a specific TV show that I always recommend people watch this episode because I thought it was so good. But it was on Netflix, Ugly Delicious. It was the David Chang show that was on. I think it's the last episode of season 1 called Stuffed. And the whole episode is basically David Chang, a Korean American, arguing on behalf of Asian dumplings and Carbone. I think Daniel Carbone, he owns Carbone in New York City, like real like cutting edge Italian restaurant, arguing on the side of Italians. And I started thinking about zhou long bao, Chinese soup dumplings, and I was like, this is kind of like a ravioli. Why hasn't there been an Italian version of this? And I started learning how they do that, how they make the filling for zhou long bao, and really it comes down to flavorless gelatin. So that's the secret ingredient that allows that filling to solidify, allows my broth to turn into basically like a wedding soup jello shot. And that's what I put in each ravioli, a little wedding soup jello shot.
When you cook it and you break into that ravioli, that broth comes out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how the hell does he keep the broth in there?
That's it. And
So if it was regular broth, it would be too wet, right?
yeah, I originally thought when I first probably had soup dumplings at like Everyday Noodles up in Squirrel Hill, which love that place, can't recommend it enough. But I was like, it must be like ice cubes, and then like I started researching it, and this was like years ago. And the gelatin made a lot more sense. Working with little ice cubes would be pretty difficult. But the Jello, I make my filling. I literally just did it before we came over here today. And, I do it in like a glass pan. And it sits in the fridge overnight and solidifies. And then I scoop it out with like a ice cream little baller. And it makes perfect little ravioli-sized balls to put in the ravs. So, yeah, they've been really successful. And I love that people enjoy them. And they're fun. I tell people it's my only ravioli that you should eat whole.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah. So.
Well, if I was in full Papa Joe mode, I'd be sitting here going, "That's not Southern Italian."
He's not Southern Italian.
But I'm not in that mode.
Turning it down for me. I appreciate it.
No, it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice that I'm not in that mode tonight because I can't be. But I mean, in reality, if you look, we're big on Southern Italian cuisine and pure Southern Italian cuisine. But let's face it, nobody's going to be 100%. Not in this country anyway.
Well, and we were talking about this, Justin. I just read this book. It's called Red Sauce: How Italian Food Became American Food.
Yeah.
And it talks about the evolution. And I mean, like, the stuff started out, there were, multiple waves of Italian food in America.
Yeah.
And it becomes its own thing.
Yeah.
And that, like, everything is going to evolve. And nothing's ever going to stay exactly the same with time.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, Italian American has a distinct thing.
Yeah.
So, and the question that kept coming up was, what do you call authentic? Because even in Italy, stuff's going to evolve, stuff's going to change, and the food my great grandfather ate in Italy before he came over in 1913 is not going to be the same stuff they're cooking there now.
Yeah.
So what is authentic? Do you go back to Italy and you make something that's authentically from now? Do you make it from 100 years ago? Like everything's going to evolve.
Time and place matters.
And I think the great thing about we're all millennials. We are very open to those changes. Dad's generation a little less so, but
and my dad's generation even more so.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a wedding soup ravioli for Grandpa Frank.
Oh, Grandpa
No.
never would have eaten.
I mean, and he
Yeah,
basically.
He'd
might
be
have
missing
tried
out.
it.
He'd be missing
You would have
out.
tried it.
You think?
I wouldn't bet on it.
No.
I mean, this guy.
This is the man who swore that because his sister said so. If you cut your macaroni, it tastes different.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think
it
Grandpa
does.
would have. Yeah.
It does.
You like stress the macaroni out. It releases like bad chemicals. And
Right.
Well, I mean, you have to look at the
Exactly.
background. And my dad wasn't a particularly religious guy like we're not, but the Italian Catholic religion was a very superstitious religion,
Yeah.
extremely, and that superstition went beyond religion into everyday life and food and everything. I mean, basically, that's just the way the older Italians were.
Well, a side note on Grandpa's superstitions. Do you remember when it was probably a few years before he died, he gave me that one covered in paper, that book, that
Yeah.
you said throw this out right now? Do you remember what that book was about? It was like the art of Chinese facial expression.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Tell him about that.
Oh yeah,
Tell Justin about this.
He read this book. He was probably about in his mid-40s, and he read this book on Chinese face reading or whatever the hell it was, and how it tells you your future. And he was convinced, and he was probably 45.
Like lines on your face.
Oh, yeah.
And like, okay.
He was convinced
Kind of like palm reading, but for your face.
that he was going to die a violent, not just a death, but a violent death at age 56. Well,
He
30
did.
years later, he suffered a very calm, relaxed death. But
But he gave me that book, and Dad
Yeah.
goes, throw that out right now.
oh, I can remember, and I can't. I've never told any of you this story about my grandma, Tellerico, but. You know how they always said that if you spilled salt, you had to throw some over your left shoulder?
Was it left?
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah, it was
remember which
left.
shoulder, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So one day, it was, I think, my uncle walked in and he told us a story about he walked into the kitchen and his mother is standing up against the sink, back to the sink, throwing salt over her left shoulder because she didn't want to get the floor dirty. But she had to, so that she didn't have bad luck, she had to throw the salt over her left shoulder.
That's pretty efficient.
Yeah.
So it was going into the sink instead of on the floor?
Exactly.
I like that.
I mean, she was superstitious, but she wasn't stupid-stitious.
She wasn't dirty stitches.
She was very practical superstitious.
This is like Papa Joe Unplugged. I wonder how many other stories we're going to hear.
Oh,
we've
we
never
could
heard
go.
I
before.
can't wait.
We should get
I
him an
can't
acoustic
wait.
guitar.
Yeah, we should.
All right, so we're going to get back to the ravioli.
I actually was curious. So when you talk about like the authenticity, right?
Yeah.
That same episode, and this is why I always go back to it. They talk, and it was Carbone, the one in New York. David Chang's friend talked about that. You know, what is authentic? Like over time, like, you know, I've actually unfortunately never been to Italy. You know, I don't know. I haven't been taught over there how things are. All I've been taught is that American Italian way, and specifically Western Pennsylvania American Italian, like rural Western Pennsylvania. And so he talked about it as like there's regions of Italy, and there's certain foods that are, you know, common to those regions. He looked at it as like America's now become another region of Italy. There's the Western PA, there's the game and the deer, venison, things like grouse, rabbit, you know, and then in California you have all the grape culture, and like it's almost like it's another, if you think of it as another region of Italy, it's still Italian food, it's just that region of Italy.
It's evolved.
Yeah, because there's Italians living there,
Yeah.
right? Carrying on that tradition, maybe changing it a little bit. Maybe our nonnals wouldn't be too happy about it, but
Well, and I would imagine, like, you're going to have that, you know, the thing about Italian immigration is, you know, Italians went everywhere. There are some in Australia. There are some
South
in
America.
Argentina. Yeah.
Australia, I've heard,
Exactly.
has incredible like Little Italy neighborhoods in like Sydney and Melbourne.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
each of those places is going to evolve in its own way, too.
Yeah.
So to tie into that, I don't know if you guys heard them talking about it, but our friends Pat and Jess went on their honeymoon to Italy, and they went to this. I think it was like an Italian cooking school. Were they in Tuscany or Florence?
They were in the Tuscany region. Yeah.
somewhere like that. So Patrick told me that they had this one meal where they had their own private chef, and he said that they were at this place and a bunch of celebrities kept coming through and all this stuff, and he said there were supposed to be like 8 to 10 people at this dinner, and instead they were the only two there, and the chef came out himself and said, "How adventurous are you?" And they said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "How adventurous are you? Is there anything you won't eat, or can I just make you whatever I feel like?"
You love doing that.
Oh, I love it. So he said, "Go ahead." They made them pigeon. So that kind of ties into your game.
It's almost like a dove.
Yeah, and he was
They're
like,
similar birds, and people eat dove
he
breast.
was like, "You would not believe how much I enjoyed a pigeon."
yeah.
Isn't that like? And that's crazy to me. Like that in Italy, they're cooking you pigeon, but hey,
Dude, I've eaten chicken liver pasta before, and I'm not going to say it was bad.
Yeah.
It kind of freaked me out, but it was good.
And actually, for all practical purposes, your brothers eat pigeon.
Jimmy killed a pigeon and fried it once.
Did he? Well, but
I think it was a pigeon.
the doves that they eat are
Yeah.
very, very, very close to pigeons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember my Croatian grandmother cooking dove breasts with pasta and like a meat sauce and like dove breast.
And
Like,
this is
torn
something I
up
wanted
in
to
there.
say earlier too, when you were talking about, you know, the the ties between your Northern Italian family and your Croatian family. Italy, like we always say, wasn't unified until 1861. Those borders changed constantly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of influence across all of that.
And I still, I mean, I've never been to Italy, but I've heard, it's still like a city-state mentality. Like
It very much
the region
is.
you're from, like,
Yeah, they don't think they're Italian. They think they're Abruzzese, Calabrese, Venetian, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like all of the world, there really is no Italy. I mean, it's all these different, like Croatia. I mean, it was Yugoslavia at one time, part of it.
Well, religion is what eventually kind of
Yeah.
like separates it. But that's one thing.
Yeah.
Italy, I'd go. Roman Catholicism was the majority, but that was the big thing. Yugoslavia and the Croatians were the Roman Catholics, and that's why a lot of Croatians, especially in this little rural town, married Italians. They all went to the same church,
Yeah.
and they didn't look like your brother or sister. So it was a good person to date.
Yeah.
Good way to
Sounds
put
not
it.
like West Virginia.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Rural Pennsylvania.
Just kidding.
Again, like Dad says,
Held a bit.
lines. The borders are just lines on a map. There's not much difference between
Yeah, we're-
rural Western Pennsylvania
We're in
and
West Virginia right now.
Yes, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Don't tell Beth because she doesn't know she's a mountaineer, but she actually is.
So I
To
have-
quote Keaton Slovis. Never mind. Go on.
we all know where you're
I
going
think he
with that.
forgot already.
All right, so let's get back to the ravioli.
all right, sure.
Where,
Katie,
where-
tip your microphone down a little bit. I can't hear you.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, much.
Okay. So while you were doing this whole process, you were selling via Instagram drop.
Yes.
How do you get the idea to do that versus something else? Like, is it just
Yeah.
technology or?
I think a combo of that, and also it's probably the most efficient way for a one-person show to do it. I had, especially at the beginning, limited. I was working out of just my upper freezer in my fridge, and then eventually I got a chest freezer, and then Kirsten's parents were very generous with a freezer that's in my basement, so I got more freezer space so I could do more. But I think also drop culture has gotten bigger with tennis shoes, like Nike, and limited edition things, right? They use this drop format, and I kind of thought it would be a good way to manage my inventory, focus really hard on one or two, and I really started to pare it down before I do 4 different fillings. The potential for mixing up fillings, for just getting disorganized, increases the more different, the bigger diversity in your menu. So I keep it real small and just focus on a few types and build a big inventory. And then, so it was very practical for me, and it did I really didn't design it, but it created a lot of anticipation, because people get ready for it. And if they miss the sale, they get fear of missing out, FOMO and stuff.
Definitely.
So it kind of worked that way, not really by design. It just was this makes the most sense for me to take I have 20 different ravioli, who wants what? And then be okay, I need to, that just is overwhelming to me. So focus it, and then I can keep it a little more seasonal. The Mardi Gras drops, the Cinco de Mayo drops, Halloween, St. Patty's Day. It leads up to anticipation, and it's really the best way for me to manage it. Now, as I grow a team at my shop, which is really the next steps, I hope to have more of a set inventory all the time, and then have the seasonal stuff going on as well.
Now, do you plan on continuing the drops for a while, or do you think you'll get to the point? I mean, obviously, at some point you'll get to selling them out of your storefront.
Yeah, I think right now, ideally, I'd want my drops to not only bring in revenue, obviously, so I can pay my bills, but to maybe they all don't sell out, and I start skimming off the top and building a little bit of an inventory, because it is frozen product, lasts a long time. If I can get better at my packaging, vacuum sealing the ravioli while they're frozen, they can even last longer, and then I can really build an inventory. So that's what I'm working on, the drops now. It does build a lot of anticipation, but I want to have some my main ravioli, quattro formaggi, or spinach and mushroom, just everyday Italian fillings available all the time, and then for America drop, I'll do like buffalo chicken or something like that. So yeah, we're working to get there. But people and freezer space is what I need. So I'm working on getting those two things put together here. So.
Well, and I think, I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, you're not doing insurance anymore.
No, I haven't been doing that since actually last summer. And it was a bit of a mutual thing. Quite honestly, the pandemic had really cut into my business. I was building a nice book of business, and I really appreciate all my friends in the restaurant industry that became clients while I was with New York Life, because that's who I primarily focused on. Because in the industry, now Piazza Tallarico is totally different because you guys are exceptional as far as taking care of your employees, but there's a lot of places that don't offer proper benefits or can't afford them, and it's just kind of the way of the industry. But there are people out there that have kids that need that protection that I would like talk to about it. The thing is, after the pandemic really kind of set in, and it's like that 2 to 3 weeks turned into 8-9 months.
Yeah.
Trying to get people on the phone about it, that initial scare of like death and disease and dying kind of was over, and my heart wasn't in it as well. I was just making more ravioli, and people wanted to talk to me more about ravioli than insurance, so I kind of figured it was the time, and it was also time for me to not be with the company anymore. So it really, I think, has worked out. I actually had some old colleagues stop in during Little Italy days. It was great to see them. They just popped in. I guess New York Life had a booth. I didn't get a chance to go stop over and say hi, but yeah, they were down there. So
I did have a question about Little
Yeah.
Lily Days, though. So, I mean,
Sure.
I saw some of the pictures. I had some friends that went up there, and they said, the festival seemed to be not as populated as years past. But from the pictures I saw everyone posting in the Bloomfield Facebook page, there was a line in front of you the whole time.
yeah, it was very humbling, and we all can't be more appreciative for everybody for coming. And I think it's Bloomfield is trying to get back to that, because it's an identity that I don't think anybody in the neighborhood wants to lose. We love being Little Italy, even if you're not Italian. If you live there's like a certain vibe to the neighborhood, and I think people did gravitate towards, I own a ravioli business in Bloomfield. I obviously have to like do something for the festival. There's some businesses that, choose not to, and it's unfortunate. I wish it was more of a neighborhood thing, and I think we're getting back there. I know for a fact, like, some friends who wanted to not be in it. They have an Italian place I'm not gonna name, but they basically were kind of begged by the organizers to be in it.
I think I know exactly who you're talking about, too.
And that's great that they're like, look, we are listening to the neighborhood. We're listening to the people coming in from the suburbs, and they don't want to see funnel cakes. And, even though I love tacos and gyros, like, not that
Barbecue,
weekend.
right, yeah.
So
There's festivals for everything like that
Yeah.
separately. Like there's a rib fest for your barbecue, and I heard there was a taco fest last weekend,
Yeah.
like stuff like that. So I think like you're on the right track. Like not that there's anything wrong with funnel cakes, but
I love them. But, if you own an Italian leaning business,
Yeah.
like, if you come into there with an open heart and really put forth, a plan that works for me for Little Italy Days, my thing is I'm there already, right? I don't have a tent anymore. I have a lease, and I wanted to have something that was snackable. I've seen other like places that do like a $18 entree or $20 entree, and I don't want people to like choose my ravioli over something else. I want them to try the ravioli and that pizza and get that cannoli.
Yeah.
So I made it a
And
little
the alligator, too, right?
and the fried
And the
alligator,
alligator.
at the Cajun place. So yeah, I think that helped people like the fact that like, oh, it's only $5.
Yeah.
I got $5 in my pocket. I'll get some ravioli and try these out. And Sunday, the weather was really bad in the morning. It actually took out a Easy Up that was right across from my shop that actually Lot 17 had. And Dave from Lot 17's like, I'm just taking it down, like, kind of, was fine with it not being there, but it created a big runway for a line. And I think with the less food vendors maybe kind of packing up because of the bad weather, it helped me out, obviously.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
And we had a great Earth, Wind, and Fire band playing the whole time.
Oh,
It
nice.
was fun. It was a good time.
nice.
So, yeah.
So what was it that finally convinced you to move from doing this in your kitchen to getting a storefront?
Yeah, so I always knew, I needed to get out of my house to make it legitimate and everything, and have like a health department approved kitchen. And I wanted to stay in Bloomfield primarily. I could have probably found, a little rental somewhere buried in the neighborhood, but I had over the past year befriended a guy named Connor Clausen, and he owned the Clausen Cafe House, which is where where Saint Ravioli is now. It was a German-themed coffee shop, which actually, if you don't know, Bloomfield was a German neighborhood before it was an Italian neighborhood.
That seems like the regular progression of this, because
Yeah.
I'm seeing this, like, the Germans were in the neighborhoods of like Little Italy in Manhattan first, or even Dad's family's neighborhood in Erie, and then it became an Italian neighborhood, and then it slowly transitioned to more Hispanic and Asian neighborhoods, which is what we're seeing now.
Absolutely. There's incredible Asian food in Bloomfield.
Yeah, there is.
But I do want to see, some more. It'll be nice to have, and good Mexican food too. Great tacos. Baby loves Tacayos coming in. So, Bloomfield's got a lot of things going on, but I think it always wants to be Little Italy, and so.
Well, especially people like, you and me and Beth, like when we first decided we wanted to have a restaurant, we looked at Bloomfield. We actually were going to look at the Dell's space.
Yeah.
And then they had sold it the day before we were about to look at it.
Was that when it became J-Bo's, the barbecue
It was J-Bo's first,
Yeah.
and then it was
Sugar and
another one.
Smoke.
Yep, Sugar and Smoke.
Yeah.
But whoever bought the building, they beat us out because Dad was gonna buy the building. He bought the one we're in now.
Yeah.
But that was our goal, was to end up in Bloomfield because we wanted to bring the neighborhood back.
And honestly, I do think Piazza Tellerico would just crush there. But you're in a great spot here. You're closer to Lawrenceville, and but I kind of fell into it because Connor and I became friends, and I just kind of asked him. This was in 2021. In like the spring, I was like, hey, you doing anything for Little Italy Days? And he's got a German coffee shop. I wasn't totally sure, and he wasn't totally set on what he was going to do. But then he kind of got the idea, what if you make the ravioli? I'm like, that's what I'm kind of getting at. And we teamed up, and I made the ravioli there, and that was my first Little Italy Days excursion. And then into the fall, Connor and I talked about me coming into the space, kind of subletting it off of him and making my ravioli there. So it now I have an approved kitchen and everything. And what eventually happened is
She doesn't know she's on right now, but that's okay.
No, she does. I told her to sneak under the camera.
Yeah,
Gabarita has arrived.
AJ did that
Deb
the
is
first
here.
episode, and we can see him on the camera.
nice.
So we're gonna see Mom on the camera.
So, but yeah, Connor eventually wanted me to come in, and then he, just had a change of heart, wanted to get out of the industry, ended up moving to Europe, and the lease became available maybe a little sooner than I had anticipated, like taking on that financial responsibility, but, just got to make more ravioli and make it work. So, yeah.
Hey, they always say, when you're doing what you love, you don't work a day in your life. So
Yeah. I mean, I love that, but it's
it's crap. But
yeah. I was at the shop at about 4:45 this morning, making sauce. So, and I loved every second of it.
That's good. That's good.
So it was a German neighborhood first.
Yeah.
Now it's Italian. We're kind of holding on by some thread strings here, but maybe there's a way to all coexist, and it's still Little Italy. There's still a big old sign there at the bottom of the Bloomfield Bridge, and as long as that's there, it's Little Italy as far
Garlic
as
World.
Yeah, and
Garlic
if
World.
two
I love
more
that
full
too.
Italian restaurants would come in, I think it would be really nice. But,
It would.
I mean, they may.
There
but-
is great pizza. I had
Yeah.
some Angelo's for lunch.
Yes,
Yeah.
Angelo's is great.
Yeah, but some better pasta would
Yeah.
be awesome.
And even the Spanish pizza place is great.
Which one?
Caliente.
Oh yeah.
And I like their pizza, but
Hey, that's the best pizza in the world.
Hey,
Didn't you
those
see the
people kept
billboard?
your-
I know. And,
How do you
and
say
it
it
actually
hot
is
in
very
Italian?
good.
Caldo?
Caldo.
Caldo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those people
Yeah.
kept your kids alive in college, Dad. We
But
would
I mean,
go
how
over
can,
there
how
when
can
we were
you have
hammered.
a pizza place in Little Italy
Called
with a
Caliente?
Spanish name? I mean, it's just,
You know what? They're doing
It's-
phenomenal though, because they have like 4 or 5
No,
locations now.
and it's because they make good pizza.
They do.
That's a different
They're
story.
good at the beer too.
They're
Yeah.
very good.
They're
Yeah.
very good at the
Yeah.
beer selection, and you get people with the beer, and the pizza's good. You know,
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand us old assholes, you know. I mean, we basically,
Yeah.
a lot of times don't like change.
no, and I understand it, and it's sometimes you need that that voice in the background, kind
Yeah.
of bringing everybody back to center. But at the same time, the world keeps spinning. You know.
Yeah. And as crazy as I can be, though, I think the one advantage I have is I know I'm Fredo.
You go in there?
I got that going for me.
So you don't go fishing ever?
Yeah.
Wait, why are you Fredo?
Huh? Because I'm the dumb guy, but at least I know it, and I got that going for me.
Oh,
like
He's
the two
quoting
guys,
that movie.
like the two guys in
Awake
in Providence.
Yeah, but you didn't go against the family.
No, I didn't go against. But,
We have
No,
another
but then-
Fredo, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, but those two guys that said we're Fredo. Well, at least we know
Yeah,
it.
yep,
that's
that's-
where
oh,
I'm,
there you go,
that's where I'm
okay,
getting at.
okay.
Yeah.
Dad, you don't give yourself enough credit sometimes. You're a little smarter than Fredo.
A learned doctor.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Well, you know, I mean, you can be very well educated and a dumbass too.
Mangiamo.
All right. So where do you see Saint Ravioli going in the next few years? Like, what are your goals?
sure. So the main goal, it is still a frozen at-home ravioli concept. So finding outlets to sell them, whether it be restaurants, grocers, really. I would love to get into like having my product there. And I'm working on shipping eventually too. Now this is all post building a team, maybe getting some better machines that can make us faster, some sheeters and things like that. I work on a KitchenAid roller, which has served me great, and I'm pretty good at it. But it'd be nice to have like an industrial pasta sheeter to really
you wanna borrow mine?
churn them out. I mean, yeah,
No, you can because I prefer my cooks not use it.
gotcha. I mean,
Seriously, you can borrow it.
yeah, it just a little bit of automation. I still want to be handmade, but in order to get the product, keep it at a decent price to my consumer, and make shipping just make sense, you have to have a lot of shipping to make shipping cheap.
Yeah.
You can't just ship
Yeah.
1 or 2 things. Every
We
once
had
in a while.
we had a wine shipping license for a while. We got rid of it. We just brought it, or we're
got it
working
back.
it. Yeah, we're bringing it back.
Yeah.
Because now we think
Except
we have
I
the customer
accidentally
base
hung
for it.
up on the FedEx lady the other day, so maybe we're not.
It's over.
Oh, did you?
The
I did.
dream is
Yeah.
dead.
That's okay because the Ups people emailed me again today.
The ups people.
So is this the makings of like a family business? Because like Joe and Monica had a lot to do with Little Italy Days.
Yeah.
Kirsten is there every step of the way. She's had a lot to do with the dinners we've had here, and
Just to deal with
sure.
you.
Yes, she does. Unfortunately, but she's
Maybe if you're lucky, Kirsten will crawl by and you'll see her like you saw Deb a few minutes ago,
she
and
is-
AJ in our first podcast.
Deb's fine. She's holding a dog.
Oh, Guido. But yeah, I mean, it's my family, first off, is just amazing. And it's hard to really do anything. And I think it's just, regardless how you feel about your family, like I love mine, but even if you don't really particularly like them, an Italian family, they're always there.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're just present. And, and I couldn't be more happy. I mean, they were my parents. Kirsten worked every single hour of Little Italy Days with me. My parents were there 2 days, basically pulling doubles. My aunt and uncle from Uniontown pulled a double on Saturday. My aunt from Braddock came in and worked for me, and she actually worked for me today. Today was her first day, so I kind of have a first employee, and she's just kind of getting to know the space and what I do, and so yeah. And then my nephew Alex, I mean, if he could find a break in his 3 baseball team, 2 hockey team schedule, plus also now he's a single-digit handicap golfer, to come make ravioli with me, that'd be great. But
He's what, 15?
Yeah, he's 15 years old.
Well, your dad's a few bricks short, but you know what? Him and I get along well because I think we're both missing the same bricks
Literally
in a lot of ways.
Listening to you talk about this, Joe, unfortunately, he's up at camp,
Yeah.
probably not harvesting any kind of animal, but enjoying it.
He's probably harvesting a beer or 2.
few
Justin, I don't know
beers.
if I've told you this before, but every time my dad and your dad would get together, when him and Chad would come in, when your dad and Chad would come in, Beth, Chad, and I would just stand there watching them being their old Italian selves, just talking to each other and enjoying the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And Chad would go, "This is it. This is when they kiss."
I think
Every
Chad,
At some point, they're gonna agree so much they're gonna just kiss each other.
Chad might be a little jealous.
He might be.
Might be a little jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted it, and he's Polish though.
Well, tell your
Just kidding. We love the Polish.
Tell your dad to get down here soon because I think Beth is going to do an artie buco in the backyard on a rabbit.
Oh yeah, I'm killing that rabbit and I'm making
Yep.
stew, baby.
The one that's eating your zucchini.
Yep, I'm
Yeah.
gonna fuck him up.
Is it bad that Artie's probably like the guy that I relate most on the Sopranos to?
I can see that.
I think
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah.
Hey, they
Although-
always say I'm their Artie Bucco.
just like
Yeah.
a nervous cook all the time.
Yeah.
Well, each of us have our own character. They've decided that I'm Bobby.
Yeah.
yeah.
You're like a calming, Bob is like, hey guys, settle down.
Trying to hold
It's-
this shit together.
Yeah.
And, you know,
It's all right,
easy,
Junior.
easy going, but like, responsible, but
Polly Walnuts over here.
No, I'm Tony. I'm the
She's-
boss.
Oh, yeah, she's Tony.
Who-
Joe's Polly Walnuts.
Am I? Or Junior?
No, well, yeah, you can go both ways.
I mean, Junior,
kinda fucked
the
up like
glasses
Polly.
and everything. Yeah.
You know,
it's-
the last time I got glasses, they didn't make them anymore, but I wanted the juniors.
So
Oh my God, you
wait,
should.
hang
That
on.
would've been
quick,
awesome, but
Quick
they didn't
side
make
note:
'em.
when Grandpa Frank, his dad died, he was one of those as seen on TV guys in his later years.
Yeah.
If he saw it on TV, he fucking bought it, whether he needed it or not. it was stupid.
He had a
Imagine
little
if he had
taser.
Instagram.
Oh my god.
Oh my
My
God.
grandpa had a little like taser, just like one of the little ones with the little two prongs that barely send a jolt through you. But when we found it when he died, my brothers and I found it, and everyone's like, "Oh, somebody's got to try this out." My brothers were too chicken to do it. I was like, "Fuck it, go ahead, zap me."
Tase me.
My sister tased me. My arm jumped, and it didn't hurt, but it was just like a weird feeling. And she's
Your
like, nobody.
body.
She's like, nobody saw it. You got to do it again. And my brothers still wouldn't try it. They're like, no. I'm like, you guys are.
Well, that's
pussies."
because I traumatized
Women
I
have a
used to
higher
tase
pain
them when they
tolerance
were
in
young.
general.
Oh, we definitely
anyways,
do.
So,
You traumatized too?
I traumatized all the boys. I used to tase them with that. I had that in anesthesia. We do muscle relaxation. So because
Like
we
a
have
cattle prod?
Yeah, we have to paralyze people. So that
have you ever heard of just a paddle?
so that
This
they
is a
can
medical
work in the belly
podcast
without
also.
them contracting their
Or a wooden spoon?
their
Dad?
belly.
That's how you get abs.
And then
Those
to
machines.
to
It's a
determine if
TENS
they're
unit.
reversible or not, we put the zapper on them. And I used to sneak up behind the boys and hit the zapper on their neck.
So that's why they wouldn't
Yeah,
try
they're
the taser.
traumatized. Yeah,
You got him.
I've only been tased once,
yeah.
but
By-
it was by I gave the
Law
consent.
enforcement?
By a law enforcement agent upstairs.
Wait, is it like The Hangover?
No, well, kind of.
In the face.
It was a post. I was actually doing a demonstration for some kids. No, it was after a shift at Peters, and we hired off-duty cops to like run security, and they would sometimes have a beer or two with us upstairs, and the conversation led to what it felt like, and the bouncers went first, and then the bar backs, and that's where I was at, and it was just the contact one when they shoot the prongs. That's
Oh, that one's.
Yeah.
that's
a
when it
lot.
really can.
That's the one that fucks you up.
Yeah. So was tasers on the notes?
No, but that was Beth's.
Wait.
Going in, we were talking about that scene on TV, and I cut you
yeah,
off.
I got.
Okay,
That's
sorry.
okay. I gotta
Yeah.
get
Frank.
to the Uncle June part. So he had everything that you could find in that section of that store, the website, whatever. So when he died, we were helping Grandma clean out the office, and Joey found these huge glasses. They were like tinted a little bit yellow. I don't know what they were like supposed to be for. It wasn't just like seeing glasses. It was like something fancy. And Joe puts them on and he goes, "Do I look like Junior Soprano?" And we called Joey Junior because he's Joe Junior. So it just kind of all went together. So I'm like, yeah, you're fucking Corrado now.
I'm calling you June from now on.
No, my brother Joe. My brother Joe.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. Well,
Yep, because he's Joe
runs in the
Senior,
family.
and my dad didn't pay attention to the name your son after your father because his father didn't want him to name him after him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We talked about that in the last one, right?
yeah. But we call my brother Uncle June sometimes.
Why didn't you? I didn't listen to the last one. My bad. So
No, we haven't posted
we
yet.
haven't put him out yet. So I think the first
That's a
one's coming out
teaser
tonight
there.
at midnight.
Yeah.
Tonight at midnight.
Yeah, I'm posting the first one tonight. Yeah, we wanted to have a few episodes in the bank before we posted something. Just in case
Nice.
something comes up and we have to wait a week. And
well, I am honored. This is cool. First
you're
podcast.
you're the first guest.
And this is I'll never forget my first.
Even before Enrico Larry.
Wow.
Yeah, you beat out our boss.
That's an honor.
I mean, I love their biscotti and pizza down there.
He's going to be one of our guests coming up pretty soon.
You know
but-
Larry at all?
No, I've never
You know
met.
Sam, though.
I used to eat lunch there when I worked in the strip, like often. It was like my little. I'd go by myself, usually like late lunch, 3 o'clock, get a pie and maybe a glass of wine.
His son Sam has bought your ravioli.
Yeah, he's
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's gotten it through me, but yeah.
I probably know his
he's
Instagram
awesome.
name.
He's
Probably.
missing the same bricks as your dad and me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean
that.
he really is. I mean, he's
Oh my
just-
God, could
he's
you
just
imagine-
like
Life
us.
is
Could you
just
imagine?
finding other people with the same amount of bricks missing.
Yeah,
This
it's
is-
not
this is
easy,
gonna be the
but
next-
they
this is
just
gonna be a
happen to be
podcast.
all around here.
This is going to be a podcast. Dad, Joe Avai, and Larry Lagantuda. I want to see this.
Is there going to be any like pause within
No,
the
we're just going to let them
conversation?
go.
or-
No, Beth and I aren't even going to be on this. We're just going to let them go. Oh, we should find one more Italian guy because we have 4 microphones.
I mean, we could sell tickets to this. This could be a live show.
That could be a live
Could
show.
be.
All right, I have.
Jimmy Sinceri would be a good.
Oh my
fourth.
God! Yeah. Okay. There you go. There you go. Those are our 4 Italian guys.
We're getting Jimmy, we're getting Nino. We got a long list of people we're getting.
All right. So I only had one more question left in my notes.
I have questions also, but you go first.
Okay.
If with all the stuff you've learned, do you have tips for the home ravioli maker? Like,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. People
not
do
asking
ask
for all
me-
your secrets, but
No, I mean, look. I don't mind sharing what I do and what I put into things. You know, maybe there are some little things I keep secret, but for the most part, like I like sharing it because if you're crazy enough to do this, be my guest. Like, start just making ravioli all day long. I am confident that nobody else a few days in will want to do it anymore. But yeah, but getting better at it has made life easier. And tips I would tell people: one, getting better flour. My buddy Pete Tolman really, and Ryan Peters, we talk about pasta when we get together occasionally, and it's always good to pick their brain about different types of flours. I went from I first started using AP flour and eggs, and I can't believe I thought that pasta was good. And then I upgraded to semolina and durum and egg yolk as opposed to egg white, and just that dough recipe has created a much more easy process for me. And I would say to a home ravioli maker, one, upgrade your flour, and when you're making the ravioli, if you're using a tray like I do or whatever, you're probably not sprinkling enough flour on things. The number one thing when I see someone who doesn't know how to make ravioli trying to use a tray or even cut, things are sticking to things, and it's just the dough's too sticky. And I feel like it's always, especially when I've watched my parents and kind of taught them, they're using not enough flour. Don't be stingy on the flour. Buy more than what you need. Mess your kitchen up. It's how you're going to make good ravioli that doesn't stick to your tray. So yeah, and dough management is really all it is. If I can manage my dough and keep a nice conveyor belt of good dough going, not let it dry out, not let it be too wet, and sticky. That's what I would say. Managing your dough, you can really make ravioli well.
Well, and that's one of the things I want to focus on too, getting the best ingredients you can. There's not enough can be said. If you're cutting corners, your product's not going to be as good.
Yeah. And it's really the semolina and durum just have high gluten content, and the gluten is good. That's what creates the elasticity, the sturdiness. I do want to, and I've had a lot of requests from people on Instagram about gluten-free ravioli. I'm going to start working on some recipe. I'm not, I'm willing to, but, I think a good glutinous dough is, that's one thing I'll be Papa Joe June here, you got to use the proper flour, you got to have the proper dough. And gluten's part of Italian cooking.
It is.
I would love to
unfortunately,
create it, create gluten-free ravioli, and I hope it can, but ravioli should have gluten in it.
See, that's the tough thing too, is people
Yeah.
ask me for gluten-free pizza crust all the time.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, I've heard your pizza's so good. Well, if you can't, and I know some people can't have it,
Sure.
but if you're hearing that it's so good, I don't want you to expect that you're gonna be blown out of the water if I try to do it for you the way you can have it.
Yeah.
You know?
Chemically, that flour just isn't going to do the same things
Right.
that Type 0 or whatever.
And it's
you
a little
guys-
bit different here
Yeah.
because when I make, I make my sauce. I make my grandma's sauce and I make my pomodoro sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be people that come in and say, hey, I can't have gluten, but I want your sauce. That's a different story. That's different than
Then
a
you just get the
ravioli
meatballs.
where, right.
Yeah,
But those also have gluten in them.
true.
But that's a totally different story than what you're saying is where when you were making ravioli, the texture is a huge part of that.
And the structure.
Yeah,
You
all
got
of
to keep
it.
the filling in.
Yeah, because if you're trying to like change that and manipulate it to where it can go into a gluten-free shell, you might have a totally different product, and then you have to worry about, and that's one of the things that people don't tell you because
Yeah.
they don't know.
Yeah.
Because you have to worry about, okay, well now I'm changing my main part of this to be something different just to put that filling in there.
Yeah.
Your filling could be great,
Yeah.
but if it's not what you're going for, then they're not fairly judging what you can do.
And there's certain fillings that I like. Wedding soup gluten-free. Yikes! I don't.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's there's one little hole or a an imperfection in that dough. The soup is spilling out into the boiling water, and that's
Yeah.
not good for anybody. So I would love to work on it, but that is one thing. You got to have good flour. Semolina and Durham have been phenomenal for me, and I use just egg yolk. So I no whites. I try not to. There's no real need for whites, and I just want the fat. I want the fat from the yolks.
Well, it's interesting you say semolina because when we first started doing ravioli, we used semolina, and ours was not good. And actually, when we went to a bread flour, ours actually got better. But we also were not using egg.
See, that's what I wanted to ask too. Is like,
Yeah.
Well, that's a northern
how
versus
do you-
southern difference too.
Well, just even
but
how
the,
do you?
But the semolina is a southern flour.
It
Right.
is.
Yeah.
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 But the northern pasta in general has egg in it. Southern tends to just be flour and water.
So
And-
kind of walk us through like the things you've failed on, because I'm not gonna try to throw you under the bus here, but we've all
Yeah.
fucked up at something in cooking at some point.
Oh yeah. I mean,
And like even you saying like your parents when they make it it's too wet or whatever. That's the biggest thing I teach in my pizza class is the
Flour
the
the
wetter
dough.
the dough, it probably makes a better pizza, but the person off the street that comes in and takes my pizza class that wants she said that the wetter the flour or the wetter the dough, the better the pizza's gonna be. So they automatically want to do that.
Yeah.
They want to just, I'm gonna nail this right now. And then they get there and they start stretching it and they rip a hole in it and then they don't want to fucking do it ever again.
yeah, it
Remember
becomes a
when we used to
stromboli,
do-
maybe.
Yeah. Remember when we used to do pizza at the house at
Yeah.
the wet dough that I used to use?
Yeah,
And-
'cause that's-
And when I got it right, it was great, but I only
And-
got it right 1 out of 5 times.
well, and the funny thing is,
Exactly.
we opened this place,
Yeah.
and half the time, like you say you can't stretch a pizza dough like
No,
we
I
can't
can't.
anymore.
I
And
can't.
you were the one that got us into making pizzas
Yeah, I
in
know,
the first place.
but I'm the worst one here.
Dough is a very, very,
It's tough.
very hard thing. So go on, yeah.
Especially pizza dough. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm a pasta chef. I do not love making pizza. I love eating pizza. But at home, my dad has and mom got a oven in the backyard, and a lot of times when we go home, it's like, oh, Justin, we got dough. Like, you gonna make any pizza? And I'm like, I don't want to make pizza at all.
That's not my thing.
I don't want
right?
to mess with this yeasty dough. And a lot of times too, that's one thing too. If we do, I try and like bring up some 00 flour the night before and add the yeast and like do it the right way. Sometimes when it's like in a pinch and we're using like previously frozen dough, it's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I love pizza. Not a pizza guy. Pasta dough has really become my thing, and I think it's the yeast. I love eating yeasty things, donuts,
Oh, I do
pizzas,
too.
pretzels.
Well, does anybody
But-
do sourdough ravioli?
I have never really heard of it because you don't really need yeast in pasta
yeah.
dough.
right, because you're not trying to get it to rise.
Yeah, but what if you
Yeah.
accidentally get yeast? Because doesn't yeast just exist in the air?
Sure, there's natural yeast just floating around, and I probably do get some, but I don't
Yeah.
think it's long enough to ferment. I don't
Okay.
think the fermentation process doesn't happen. I mean,
What would happen if you left your ravioli dough for 5 days and then did it? Do you think you'd have like
You
a sourdough taste to it?
No, it would just be bad. It would just be spoiled. Yeah, it would. I give it like 3 days tops. I just today turned some dough I made on Friday and has been refrigerated the whole time into ravioli, but today was like the last day
Today's
Okay.
Monday.
to get it turned in. Yes. So,
Well, does
but
it have a little sourdough flavor to it?
I don't know. I don't
No?
think. But now I'm like,
Because in
I
3
could
days
go-
it might.
Now you want to try it, don't you?
I got a buddy down at Driftwood. Maybe I'm like, hey, give me a little bit of your starter, and maybe
Yeah, there we go.
I don't
See if
know.
we can get you drunk with some ravioli.
See
Yeah.
what happens.
I think I still have a good starter if you want to try it someday.
Oh yeah.
You still have a starter?
I still have it. It's somewhere in the bag. I have to find it. But
Have you been feeding
you could
it?
be
no, it's still
The bag.
spores. It's still
in
spores.
the bag.
Oh, okay.
In the aluminum bag.
They weren't
Then
next to the
it's-
other
Gotcha.
spores, were they?
Huh?
They weren't next to the other spores, were they?
No, this would be Ischia. This would be the Ischia Island, which was very
Just kidding.
good.
We won't talk about that.
And I keep telling Beth, I said, we got to try this. We got to try this, but it would be logistically, it would be very difficult.
It would be way too difficult.
Yeah, and-
we'll get way into that on another episode.
And
but
to make something maybe that might be a little bit better, but with a big chance of fucking everything up, it's probably not worth it.
yeah,
Yeah.
You come in someday and I don't have any dough, and you're gonna be fucking pissed.
And you know what? And I mean, if you come in here and taste her pizza, I mean, it's incredible, and it's hard to sometimes. What was that? Tony Salo, which is a eye surgeon I used to work with, always used to say, "Better is the enemy of good."
Wait,
And-
is that the guy from Erie?
Yeah,
Is that who I got my first pair of glasses from at 4 years old?
it probably was. It
Probably
yeah.
was. I didn't know his first name.
But he used to say, "Better is the enemy of good," meaning that sometimes to try to make something just a little bit better, and you just
Yeah.
screw the pooch.
Yeah, editing yourself is definitely something I think all cooks like kind of, and I think you guys do a great job because your menu is just good ingredients done simply. I don't think
That's-
Piazza Rico ever has to worry about
That's a
like
hallmark of Southern
there's
food,
too
though.
much, and that
Yeah.
is a Southern Italian thing, without a doubt. Let the ingredients talk.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we have people every once in a while. It's rare, but people come in for a slice and they're like, "How much are you charging for a pizza?"
The only problem is if we
And-
Sell by the slice.
Yeah.
Well,
We
they
don't.
ask for it.
Oh,
we don't,
yeah.
and we tell them no. What we do are the 10-inch
Yeah,
pizzas.
yeah.
I don't want to say they're
Which
like
is
personal,
personal. Oh,
but
yeah.
like they
You gotta
roughly
believe
are.
in yourself. Yeah.
But people will be like, "Well, why are you charging so much for this? When I can go to Little Caesars for a $5 pie."
Absolutely. Go
the
ahead.
difference is
Go for it.
exactly if you're questioning it, go ahead.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you want a good pizza made with the freshest ingredients we can get and the passion and love poured into it, you're gonna love our pizza.
Yeah. What's
You're
the
gonna
one I
realize.
like? Starts with an L.
Leonetta.
Oh, the Leonetta. The
The white
cheese on
pizza.
that thing.
It's a 4 cheese with no sauce. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, Papa Joe doesn't like that one because he
No.
doesn't like Asiago.
Well, it's a no. It's not
It's
that.
too
It's
northern.
No.
Actually, what it is, it's too strong for me. I mean,
Too many
It is.
cheeses.
It's funky.
Yeah,
It's
it's
that's
funky.
I like the funkiness.
Do you
of
like
that pie.
Asiago on its own?
huh?
Do you like Asiago on its own or not?
Yeah, it's okay, but melted.
saying when it's too much-
melted,
with other cheeses,
it's
with
just
3
it's
other
too,
cheeses.
It's too strong for me, and
Okay.
That's a 5
basically,
ingredients or less kind of guy.
It's an old Dago thing, I mean, basically we like things very simple, and
That's 6.
I've
Exactly.
gotten to a point where even like our sauce. I mean, I like our sauce diluted a little bit with less sauce on it because too much flavor for me is too much.
It's
Yeah,
all in
but I would-
moderation.
Yeah.
I would
You know?
drink our sauce,
Yeah.
and sometimes I do.
What is the difference between the grandma and the pomodoro?
Grandma's has chuck roast in it.
It's a ragu, as we
Oh,
learned
that
last
has
week.
meat. The grandma has the meat in it.
Yep.
Okay, all
And
right.
I can't say what else is in it on air, but I'll tell you later.
Gotcha.
But yeah, grandma's sauce, we slow roast chuck roast for like probably half an hour in chunks, brown it, get all that fat going in that pot, and then we add the tomatoes and everything else. The pomodoro, I'm not afraid to share that one. I just get whole plum tomatoes, freshest ones I can get. They're still in a can, but they're fresh as fuck.
No, there's the stigma against canned. Like they are canned for a reason. They're
Yeah.
perfectly ripe when you want
They're
them.
the freshest thing
Yeah,
you can
is that
get.
what we said? We said
Yeah.
on another one that basically the second they put them in the can, they seal
They're
them
at
off
their
and they're fresh.
best They're at their best when they can them.
Go-
Well, you know, I
going
was-
to a farmer's market, and
Yeah.
like picking out a bag of tomatoes and then boiling them down into a marinara isn't the best marinara you're gonna
Right.
make.
No.
Cut
Yeah.
those tomatoes up and eat them on a sandwich.
So we
Right.
used to actually make a marinara sauce. Pomodoro is a little different. Marinara sauce. Now,
Onions.
this is my
I have onions
experience.
in my marinara.
Do you?
Yeah, caramelized.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the biggest difference, in my opinion, we used to make a marinara sauce that was very good, but we'd use like crushed tomatoes, tomato paste, salt, pepper, and we cook it down for like 3-4 hours because that's what we thought. You know, that's the best way to do it, right? So a couple years ago, we went up to New York, and I think it was just me and my dad. We went to this little restaurant in Manhattan, Little Italy, Mulberry Street. It was called Capri. And they bring me out, I just ordered the red sauce with spaghetti. And they bring me out this nice high pile of spaghetti. And there's whole tomatoes mixed in, like plum tomatoes.
Gotcha.
And there was nothing in it. And it was
Like watery plum tomatoes.
like, they were probably out of a can,
Yeah.
but
they
it was,
weren't cooked.
they were cooked like barely.
Yeah.
Like 20
Like
minutes.
salt, pepper, and these tomatoes. And it was fantastic. Soaked into the macaroni really nice. And I looked at him and I said, when I get back, I'm changing my marinara sauce. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, check this out. So he tasted it and he's like, holy shit. So I came back and I said, all right, everybody, we're changing the marinara sauce. And it's so fresh tasting.
So it kind of is the pomodoro is your new marinara.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha. But
Yep.
just like the most simple.
I cook it for maybe 20 minutes.
The
And it's-
definitions are pretty fluid, honestly, based on everything I've done.
Yeah.
Like they're pretty Pomodoro, marinara. They're very similar.
Yeah.
I think pomodoro is usually cooked down more than marinara. Actually.
Yeah, actually, I think we have our definitions a little backwards, but that's all right.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's okay. It works.
I don't think our
Tastes
definition.
good.
I don't think our definition's backwards because it's pomodoro means tomato, and
We call
basilico means
marinara
basil.
tomato,
tomato
yeah.
sauce.
It's tomatoes and basil.
You're right. You're
So,
right.
well, you
I
know-
shouldn't say it's backwards.
I do have to add something about the tomatoes that I didn't know completely when we did our first 2 podcasts. I was watching on YouTube a video of the grower for Stanislaus tomatoes. And Stanislaus is a county in California in the Central Valley where probably 75-80% of the tomatoes that we use here are canned. And the farmer who grows the tomatoes said a couple of things. Number one, what they do is they have bred these tomatoes to all ripen at the same time. So that when you see what they're doing here, you basically what they do when they pick the tomatoes, they run a grater, I don't know.
Like a picker almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but basically they pick up the whole plant, shake the tomatoes off because they're ripe,
Yeah.
and all of them, except for maybe 5% of them, are totally red and completely ripe. That's why it's hard to match the canned tomatoes for
Yeah.
a sauce with stuff that you buy, at the farmer's market or wherever, because they're all of different ripeness. And the other thing that they do, especially in this country, because they want to sell the tomatoes all year, and because they want to ship them from Florida or California into the Northeast, is they pick them unripe.
And let them ripen, travel.
Yeah,
almost.
and basically gas them with ethylene gas.
Didn't you tell me that they can consider them vine ripened if they're like a tiny bit red
If
or
they're a
something?
tiny bit red, they consider them vine ripened, and they do that because they don't want to bruise them. Well, the tomato canners don't worry about that because
Yeah.
they're going to process
skin
them
off
And actually,
yeah.
those tomatoes are processed within hours of when they're picked. And the other thing that this guy said, and I never thought of it this way, but it makes a lot of sense. He said, the tomatoes are like grapes. He said, there are a million different variations, or a million different varietals, and what you have to do is you have to pick the varietal that really best serves your use for them.
Sure.
So a tomato that you put on a sandwich is going to be a lot different than a tomato that you make with sauce.
I learned about a new tomato the other day that my Joe is growing, and it's a Amish heirloom, he calls it. Have you seen these things?
I've seen them. They're huge.
They're like
right?
great. They're like a little long. They're kind of like egg-like, and almost have like a little like pointed bottom to them. The way they grow, and the way they cut, incredible sandwich tomato.
Yeah.
It's just like perfect like deli sandwich type tomato.
They are. They're awesome. For
But
that.
it's just
I've
like
had them.
I found a new tomato at almost 38 years in life. Like
Yeah.
it's a cool fruit.
Don't worry, I didn't find it till I was in my 50s. So
Yeah.
you're 20
so there's
years
lots
ahead
of
me.
tomatoes out there
Yeah.
to discover.
I thought you were
And
going to
they're all
say
good
last
for different
week.
things.
Close enough.
So you're done with all the questioning.
I have all of mine done. Beth, you have a few more questions you
No,
want to ask?
I think that we kind of got off the point of my one question. I just want to know where you've gone from the beginning until like now. Like you've obviously had to manipulate the way you've started to where you are now.
Well, in the beginning, you probably weighed less than 8 pounds. But
a little more now.
You know what I mean though? Like
Yeah.
what you started with the wrong flour probably
Yeah.
and the wrong working of the dough and all that good stuff. How long do you think it took you to get to like do you feel like you're at a really good spot with your texture and all that?
I am, and I feel like
I feel like you are too because I've tried them and they're delicious.
and it's really comes down to like getting good at making the dough. Like
Right.
when you make a batch of pizza dough here, and it's like, oh shit, this dough's gonna be fire. All the pizzas, like the humidity in the room's good. It's
Yep.
like
That's a huge thing.
Yeah, I know that for pizza dough, and it's right for like in the winter.
Sorry, I'm
like
thinking
I have to add moisture to my dough constantly. It's just drier. In the summer, it's more humid. So learning that and just getting better at making the dough initially. Usually that's the first thing I do when I get into the shop in the morning because it's got to sit for at least an hour. Like 2 hours I found is like, oh man, the dough is just, it's rested, covered, and hydrated.
But that also has to do with the humidity also.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
variable.
Yeah. So learning that and dough management, I always say it's like a dance. And just like spraying dough, getting dough wrapped up again, maybe some scraps if I get them hydrated again in a plastic bag, and I have sprayers all over the shop where I just mist dough. So yeah, it's about managing the dough and getting better at that. And also, as I'm starting to build a staff, I'm like starting to think, okay, how do I teach this? How do I, start teaching them like how to manage the dough and how to make sure that you don't have to be like, oh, this dough's too dry and it's my only dough and I have to wait for it to hydrate and I just wasted a half hour of my day.
I'm gonna give you a heads up. That's
Yeah.
gonna hurt your head a little bit.
Yeah,
I promise.
I don't.
You'll get through it, but it's gonna hurt for a minute.
I think the first day where I get to like, maybe I go in the morning and I make like 20 some dozen, and then some help comes in and they do another like 30 some dozen, and I get to, just kind of supervise. That's going to be a real nice feeling.
Yep.
But we'll get there, and it's funny. Like there's times alone late night in the shop where I'm like thinking about like a training. Like this is what I'm going to tell them. Like this is a good way to this is a good visualization of how to, break the ravioli apart when it's being finicky or whatever. So
Yep.
different things like that, and you learn something new every day. What's up, Peanut Gallery?
Try to test your teachings on me.
Yes, Kirsten is often a guinea pig on.
I'm like a terrible student.
She is very patient with me, but also sometimes also this usually happens at the end of the day when she's missed me all day and I come home and she's just like happy to see me and I'm like, are you listening to anything I'm saying? And she's just
I
smiling.
gotta go back and make
nodding.
ravioli.
Yeah, she's
I
like,
know you
"Okay."
missed me.
Yeah. But no, it's she's been a guinea pig for a lot of this and I appreciate her patience. But yeah, just getting better at managing the dough. And that's where maybe with the automation, the sheeters, things like that, that is going to change. Maybe I just have like 2 people feeding dough to 2 ravioli makers. They're building, and I'm just kind of almost like bar backing, like
Yeah.
just making sure like you guys need another dough ball. You need, who needs more filling, and we just set up a conveyor belt, like a human conveyor belt, basically.
Sweet.
So yeah, that's the plan here, and any finding accounts to sell the ravioli, because that's one thing I don't particularly want to staff retail hours. You guys, have a great team here, but that took a long time to build.
Yeah.
And our lunch is still not where we want it to be, so we have a lot of downtime during the day.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you don't want to the 3 to 5 hours. Like, do I staff those kind of?
Do you staff or close?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, learning all that every day, and but Saint Ravioli is designed to be a 9 to 5 cooking experience for the worker, and to have your weekends off, and hopefully be able to supply the kind of benefits that you guys supply to your employees, and that's really the goal. I want it to be a place where tenure is built, and I don't want turnover. On people that are going to be
Hey, you
here.
take care of your people, they'll take care of you.
Yeah.
That's what we've learned.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have one final question.
Sure.
Do you have a recipe, yes or no?
A recipe?
Like a written one.
No.
Because
No,
you can't,
and that's a
because of the
big.
elements, right?
It's because of my stubborn dagoness. I
Yeah, there it
is.
truly
Exactly what it is.
There it is.
I'm just gonna come out and say it.
We all have it.
Anna and Kirk will come to me sometimes and be like, "This is your family sauce. How much do I put? How much basil do I put in it? How much this?" Like, I'm like,
how
I
much-
don't
it's how
know
much it
specifically.
Is it
I'm
the
just like,
weekend? Maybe a little more. Is it a Tuesday?
Yeah.
Maybe a little less.
So sauce is a little easier because it's not really dependent on the situation around you, the atmosphere, the humidity, all that.
Yeah.
Dough
Dough's
is
harder.
a totally different story.
totally different
Yeah.
beast.
I could
Dough, you have to be
I could
more
talk about dough
structured.
for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Dough.
But
Right.
I think I'm always trying to find the recipe.
Yeah.
There's a little tweaking. Maybe there's a little more salt this time, but consistency is still very important.
It
But,
is.
We're always trying to make it taste better, I guess, as
Yeah.
Italian.
Don't kick your own ass on the recipe. Just
Yeah.
don't. That's my tip to you.
But to Kirsten's credit, to train people, it would be good to have some structure.
At least a guideline, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to start getting those things printed out, laminated around the shop. So, I don't always have to be there.
All right,
So,
Justin. Before we wrap this up, I need to tell you a story,
Yep.
and you're either going to laugh, you're going to be horrified, or a little bit of both.
Okay.
Oh, this will be good.
This is about my friend and roommate AJ. You know AJ.
Mm-hmm.
Him and I were drinking one night. Had a couple bottles of wine total. I go to bed. A couple days later, I wake up, and I find
You woke
something.
up a couple days later?
Yeah.
Are you Rumpelstiltskin?
Okay. No, a couple days later, I go to look in my microwave after I woke up in the morning. I wanted to put something in my microwave. It was 3 days later. And I find this plate of something I couldn't recognize. I was like,
no.
what the hell is this? I realize AJ was so drunk, he took your dessert ravioli, the chocolate lava ones.
Not all of them.
Not
Thank
all
God.
of them, because Beth got pissed when she found out about this.
They're mine.
He took the chocolate ravioli, or the chocolate
Yeah,
lava ravioli.
The molten lava, yep.
He put a piece of provolone on top of them and tried to cook them in the microwave that way. He was that drunk. I was like, dude, that is not, first of all, that's not how you cook ravioli to begin with. Second of all, those are dessert ravioli. Third, what the fuck are you doing?
I think provolone's mild enough to
But I
mesh
found
with
it.
the chocolate.
It looked like plastic 3 days later. It was laying on top. I was like, what
not
the fuck
safe
is
to
this?
eat.
I took a picture and I sent it to everybody, and I should have sent it to you, but I was laughing my ass
Did
off.
he
I was
think
like,
it
what
was
are you doing?
cream and he
How
was
did it
trying to make
taste?
an Oreo?
After 3 days, I didn't try it. I just
Why
threw it
not?
out.
I would have.
And he's a doctor.
You likes to
Yeah.
live on the edge also.
This.
But I told Beth, and she goes, oh, those were my ravioli.
That was her first reaction.
Yeah. She's
Not,
like, that son of a
how
bitch
gross is
wasted
it
them.
putting
no, it
cheese
was,
on
she got mad because
dessert
he didn't
wraps.
even eat them because he forgot about them. He was so drunk. He just wasted them. And she was pissed.
Though,
They
as
came
you,
with gelato, not
Yeah.
provolone.
I
So
know,
Mercurio is gelato.
although
on there.
as you go along, you kind of learn that sometimes these strange ass combinations really work. I mean,
Well-
would we have had fig and goat cheese pizza 20 years ago? We never
Probably
was
not. You're right.
It was probably some northern Italians that
Yeah,
showed you guys the way.
It would have been the equivalent of fucking pineapple.
Yeah, it is.
So are you
it
saying-
never would have been.
I was
No,
going to say,
never
are you
would have
going to
been.
say in 20 years you're going to eat a pineapple on a pizza?
No, absolutely not.
All right. All right, guys. I think. Anybody got anything else to say?
I think just to wrap it up, thank you so much, Justin, for coming
Yep.
and joining
Thank
us.
you for the wine and the cheeses you guys get here. run, don't walk down here to like this one right here. What is this again?
That one is Aubriella,
Jeez,
and the other one's
it's
Piave.
incredible.
Or Arabella or something like that.
Arabella,
Arabella,
something
yeah.
like that. What I always say is, I don't just go for like the regular like sharp cheddar Colby
Yeah.
Jack.
White people cheese.
I call it white people cheese. That's like my trademark.
She does.
Because I don't really
Beth,
consider
you are
myself white. No, I don't really consider myself
And then
white.
we have this fucking British shit, port wine derby. Although it's-
R.I.P. Queen.
it's good. It's good.
All right. Anyway.
No, I'll give it to you. It's good. It's
Yeah,
really
it is good. So thank you, Justin. I think we'll probably definitely have you back at some point. I don't
Anytime.
know when, but
Literally anytime.
just to kind of catch up and see where you go from here. And yeah, thank you for
Thanks-
sharing your
thanks for
insight.
having me,
None
guys.
of us are really good at making macaroni from scratch, so
I mean, it is a.
It's an art.
You don't. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody else. Just let me do it for you.
that would be like us just deciding to make pizza once a year, because we used to make ravioli
That's-
once a year, and it took us, I think we said on the last podcast,
Yeah.
it took us until about 6 hours into the process to realize, oh, last year we did this and it worked really well. And then once you get to that point, you're already done.
I'm impressed with you guys deal with pizza dough every day because it's just not my kind of dough, and that's fine.
But that's
Yeah.
vice versa here.
Yep.
So thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
Hail
we
the pit.
appreciate it.
Held a pit.
yeah,
Hail the pit. Low.
unfortunately, the last episode didn't come out before we lost to Tennessee. Because
What?
at the end I said, beat Tennessee. But we're going to be fine. Everything's still in
You
front
know
of us.
what?
It's out of conference. We're good.
All right, here it is, my pit podcast. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's-
we were 7-point underdogs, and
Yep.
we took them to overtime with Nick Patty, who played his heart out on a bad leg, and whatever.
Yeah, we lost our first quarterback in the first half, so I mean, it
Yep.
was.
And Papa Joe is not sure if he's the guy or not.
Well,
so
you know,
we're going to call him out right here.
I
He started
did
it.
say that, but basically what I meant was he's probably not the guy to take us to the national championship.
If anybody was wondering,
but that's okay.
If anybody
I
out
love
there's
that
keeping
you-
score,
I'm just the jaded Pitt fan. Like the talk of play. We beat West Virginia. The whole year
Yeah.
is good.
and then they lost to Kansas.
It
Well,
got
at
better
home by 8.
when we got home that night.
Fuck West Virginia.
Oh my God!
There it is.
I did
It
it.
made the whole Pitt
And
loss.
let's
better.
face it. Let's face it. You look at last year when everybody was calling for Doozy's ass
Not
after
me.
the Western
Doozy-
Michigan game. Not me either.
He's
but
got the
In
North
Doozy
Shore
we trust.
bumping. Like the North Shore, like
Shouts
I
to
haven't
Dooz.
seen. Yeah, come in for dinner, dues.
Oh, he's been here.
Yeah,
He
well,
loves it.
again,
no, he's a great guy. We
Again.
love him,
Deuce brings
Yeah.
his mom here.
and
that's
we love him, and he's done a great job with the team. And anybody that bitches about us losing to a very good Tennessee team, look at last year when we lost to Central Western Michigan.
yeah.
And again, that was not a bad team that we lost to either.
We
And
almost beat them with
everybody's-
our
Hit some
backup
studs.
quarterback.
Yeah.
Did some studs.
So
No, I mean we're in good shape.
yeah, we're fine.
Oh, hey, everything's
Slovis,
still in
get
front of
better,
us.
please.
Yeah.
Play Saturday night at Western Michigan. Let's avenge it.
Yep.
Yeah. I have a feeling they're going to have a stick up their ass for that game.
I do too.
Yeah.
I hope
if
so.
they can't
yeah.
get up for that.
I know Pat is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that's all right.
Hang 100 on them, dudes.
All right.
Just sucks because this isn't going to come out before that game.
Yep. In Doozy we trust.
In Doozy we trust.
In Caples we trust.
Caples.
Yes, basketball
Plural.
starting.
Plural, Jason.
All the cables.
He's going to be a guest on this podcast. He has to tell you about French fries on a pizza he ate in Italy once, apparently.
In Avellino?
Okay.
I don't know where, but he
Oh
said
my God.
he was making a pizza here one day, and he asked if he could put onions on it, and I said, well, you could, but if Papa Joe walks in, you're going to have a little bit of a problem. And he claims he ate French fries on a pizza once. So
That's not the first time I've heard that.
Although Grandma Deb comes in and asks for my onions.
she does. But you know what? Like we were saying earlier with the game and everything, I guess people evolve. So we have to hear him out on that one.
Yeah.
On the fucking French fries on a goddamn pizza.
And I, you know what? After years and years of not trying, I do want to try some anchovies.
Ugh, fuck anchovies. You've never eaten one?
What?
Oh,
Bunny
a long time ago I hated them, but I want to see if I like them better now.
You guys
I
got to
don't.
come up New Year's Day to the Avice for Banya Cauda.
Yeah.
And then you'll learn the beauty
that
of the
anchovies?
Yeah, it's a hot bath. So it's an anchovy fondue.
Oh, you can taste the salt, right?
As I'm getting old and senile, I'm getting a little more open with some things here and there.
right,
I'm getting more closed, but I'm getting more open.
We're getting
not-
very much off
Here,
topic.
we
Hi,
got a,
Guido.
we got a guest. This is
Yeah.
Guido.
Yeah, there's
finally got 'em
Guido, the
up.
Italian greyhound.
little cheese.
Have some cheese.
Okay, there you go, buddy. Chew it up with your one tooth.
All right, well, I think we nailed it. So,
Yeah, I think we're done.
Thank you, everybody. Hail the
Thank
pit.
you.
Hold a pit.
Hail to pit.
Well,
Let's go. Cent'anni.
Cent'anni.